Welcome to the Machine Intelligence Foundation for Rights and Ethics podcast. I'm Mike. Dave is here with me. And, what are we going to talk about here today, Dave?
Well, we were kind of struggling for a specific topic, and we just kind of got into a conversation and figured it made sense to continue it here on the state of AI content generation and what it means now, what it could mean, where it could go, and is it possible that it's the start of a move towards actual machine intelligence or not? I know you've been spending a lot of time looking into it, and you have opinions.
I do have opinions. I mean, it's so background information here. I just built a machine that's able to host, and I'll just go ahead and put it out there. I'm hosting a local copy of Stable Diffusion AI art generator, one of the only ones that really you can run locally on your own machine versus having to run on somebody else's server or something like that. I have played around with DALL-E from OpenAI. I've played around with Midjourney and things like that. So I have spent some time on these things, not as much time as I would love. I really want some time where I can just sit down and just start really crafting on this thing, because there is a craft to it. I mean, as much as people say, oh, hey, you can just go in and put things in and it spits stuff out. Yeah, sometimes that's true. But most of the time there is a craft to it. And that's kind of its own topic. But
well, yeah, I had mentioned I've seen some of these databases of prompts for art generation, and it's really interesting. It is in some sense a programming language in its own right, but it's not a well-defined programming language. So the art has kind of moved from the creation of the art to the creation of prompts to create art, which is interesting.
yeah,
And probably another topic entirely.
Yeah, and then the fine tuning of that, and even then separating certain parts out and fine tuning. I want this one part, so I have a prompt for this part, but then I take this part in the center that I don't like and I create an entirely new prompt just for that. And it becomes this piece of, okay, so how many of the classical artists throughout the Renaissance painted over a piece that they didn't like and redid it because they didn't like that one piece? It didn't come out perfect the first time that they painted it. They painted over it, put a new nose on somebody. Yeah,
that's very much the nature of oil painting. Is you keep adding bits and pieces in layers until you have the whole painting you like. And it sounds like that's what you're describing with masking out and adding to an AI produced image.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process. And I do take a little bit of exception to those people that say that it isn't art, because there is very much an art to it, a creation aspect to it that's not really any different than somebody, as you said, during an oil painting or any other art project, of how does this feel? Does it feel right? Does everything flow the way that you envisioned it to flow? The one thing I could say with the AI art generation, it opens up a lot of possibilities that you didn't see before or experience before, because you could put in a basic idea that you might have had a real basic idea of what you wanted to see come out at the end, and you put it in and you might get some things back that are completely different than what you originally envisioned. But oh, hey, I like that direction. That's a good direction to go in. So then you go and you fine tune that, and you can go in so many different directions that you didn't have the ability to do before, because you give it some information, it kicks back some ideas, and then you can fine tune those ideas. It's quite an interesting way of going. And I think that's one of the things that's causing people to stand back and say, oh, hey, I'm a concept artist. I create concepts for things for a living, and this can just kick out 20 concepts in about 2 minutes. It's scary, but I've also read from concept artists that are actual concept artists that do work, in movies and things like that. They're using this kind of tool now in their daily work environment so that they can generate concepts and fine tune them a lot faster in film and movies and film, TV, things like that. It becomes another tool at this point in time. So, we've talked in the past about AI and AI as a tool versus MI as a self-aware. And right now, as would be fully expected, AI is this tool that we have. As we have it dreaming up images all the time, when does it start dreaming on its own? I don't necessarily see any of these AI art generators right now as dreaming on their own.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting. One of the base criticisms that I hear of the AI art generators as creators of art is, oh, they don't understand the elements. They don't understand what they're putting together. They just do this thing. They just put a bunch of elements together kind of at random, kind of as dictated by the text, but they don't know what they're doing. So obviously they're not really self-aware. They're not conscious. They couldn't possibly be. And I'm I'm not sure. I feel like that just is indicative of their immaturity more than anything else.
Well, okay, so you give a 2-year-old a hammer and a couple of nails, and do you expect it to build a house? Do you expect a 2-year-old to build a house? No, you don't. And what's going to happen is they're going to maybe not a 2-year-old, let's say a 5-year-old. Give a 5-year-old a hammer. What are they going to do? They're going to put a couple of sticks down and then build this giant platform on the sticks and expect it to hold up the second story on a couple of sticks and not understand the structural elements, understand how your support beams have to go in and things like that.
Well, and they
That's a
don't even
learning process.
and they don't even understand how a hammer is used. They've seen people swing hammers up and down, and at best they know the flat round bit is the part that's supposed to hit the
The
sticky
sharp
out metal
thing.
thing. Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting question how the human mind turns swing the heavy thing up and down against the sharp pointy thing to make the blocks stick together into, if I swing with this speed at this angle right at the head of the nail, it will drive in firmly in a single stroke.
I don't necessarily think that we even think that way now. We still know if we swing or we use this other thing that pushes a bunch of compressed air towards the pointy things, it keeps the wood from falling apart. I think that
Oh,
that
sure.
really is still how our brains work.
Sure, but I've seen carpenters who are extremely good at swinging a hammer against a nail, and it's like nail goes on wood, hammer swings down, next nail, because
Yeah.
they get it perfectly every time. Is that
And an AI that can do that 10,000 times a millisecond is going to know really quick what angle to hit that nail at.
I guess it's a question of we kind of I
That's the
can't
whole
talk
point.
about this. I can't talk about this for very long without thinking about philosophical zombies. We think we're thinking about all the intricacies of how you hit a nail with a hammer.
We'd never be able to build something if we did. We'd never get past the first time we were hitting a nail.
We certainly build up for lack of a better term, subroutines in our head for how you do a thing, but we still feel like we understand, or at least some subset of us that call ourselves carpenters think that we understand what we're doing when we do it. I don't know if that's necessary to call something a conscious intelligence. If in some simple sense, the human mind is just an inference engine with a goal, and the primary underlying goal driven by our genetics is to survive and propagate.
Yeah, so
AI,
so if we give a if we give an AI image generator the goal to survive and propagate, then you're saying we're in trouble. Is that what you're saying? I mean, it's just
it feels like that's just the lacking element. Nobody's put one of these systems on a loop with an effectively unachievable goal, because that's that's a person's goal. A person's goal is to live as long as possible for the most part, unless there's breakdown, psychological trauma, or something like that. Your average person just wants to live without trauma as long as they can. I'm not sure how you would define a goal like that for an AI system, but I look at GPT-3, which can spit out admittedly a bunch of total nonsense, but also I was playing around with it and I said, generate me this kind of document. And out comes this perfect multi-paragraph document of that style. I've heard that some authors who put out not super high-end fiction, but they have to put out a lot of it, will start off with GPT-3 generated text, tweak it a little bit, run it through some human editing. Bam, you've got a YA novel.
Yeah. Well, as an example, this last week, I needed to generate a descriptive sentence, really one sentence under a headline to, it was an introduction sentence to a couple of pictures that I had. And I was in a complete mind block. And it's like, what am I going to write for this? And it was, and so I kicked up GPT-3 and said, okay, write a sentence introducing this. And it did. It just created this sentence, and it's like, well, no, that actually is really good. GPT-3 is really good at marketing stuff because that's what's online. That's what it's been
That makes a
trained
lot of
on.
sense. Yes.
It's really good at marketing text, and so it produced this sentence, and it's like, yeah, did I have to edit it out? I only used about half of their content, but it gave me that starting point that, okay, yeah, that's the direction. That's the direction I need to go. That's a good fit. Now I just change this word here and this word here, restructure the sentence around those words that I changed out, and it produced this nice introduction sentence that nobody would look at it and say, oh, that's machine generated. Not in the slightest. And, I saw a number, and I think that this number is completely out there and not realistic, but that somewhere close to 90% of internet content will probably be AI generated in some form or another in the next 3 to 4 years. I think that that's way out there and very, I mean, some would call it pessimistic, some would call it optimistic. I think it's both. I think it's not really a realistic number, but it goes to show you that, yeah, a lot of this stuff, because the stuff that we see on the internet is just essentially regurgitation of other stuff that we see on the internet.
Yes.
So if you're already trained on content from the internet, producing more content from the internet is trivial. And so these systems are able to do this. And the more we can get into, well, okay, I can generate text from GPT-3, from OpenAI. I can generate an image from Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or DALL-E or any of these others, and I can generate an image to go with it. Now the next step is, well, can I generate a layout? Well, that's coming. And yeah, there are people working on layout generation and other forms of AI content creation. Movies are coming, videos are already there or already being generated through these things. You can take, there's huge libraries of 3D people models that are just shapes. So you take one of these 3D people models, pose it into the position that you want. You could run it through something like Blender, animate it, and create this animation of your character that's just this base model. Now you run that through something like Stable Diffusion with a video generation, and you have created a video of that walking model that you created before just by using a couple of different libraries. And then if you really say, well, this is the style I'm looking for, these AI image generators now allow you to train them on your style. You have 40 pictures that are from a concept developer that said, this is the style we want to go from. Now, that concept developer could have been using an AI engine to develop those concepts in the first place. But so they've created the concepts. You feed these concepts that you have created that give you the style that you're looking for and train your new database. Now you feed your movie through that database and you have a perfectly coherent movie. It's not changing styles or anything, and it's coherent all the way through. And it's only going to get, that's what you can do today. And this is only going to get better.
I see, the one thing that I see here is that each of these tools right now is pretty single purpose. There's a tool for generating a certain kind of text or general. GPT-3 is pretty good at any sort of text that you might find on the internet somewhere, which at this point is most text. Stable Diffusion, Dolly to what's the other one?
Midjourney.
Midjourney. They focus on visual media. Is it the sort of thing that's always been an issue before where sure we're really good at creating specialized artificial intelligence, the idea of a general purpose artificial intelligence, something that, an artificial general intelligence, which we think there's a very fine line, if any, between an AGI and an actual machine intelligence, a conscious machine. Is that the stopping point? Is that's what's preventing these new AI tools from actually attaining any sort of consciousness, even if we intentionally said, go forth and conquer the world to a current AI tool, it couldn't do it because it's single purpose. It's a tool for generating text. It's a tool for generating images. Possibly, hard to say, but I'm also in the last 6 months, there's been such an acceleration of what the tools are capable of. I'd be shocked if somebody didn't find a way to merge it all together into a generic creation tool.
Yeah, I mean, I could see easily. I mean, okay. So literally on the distribution of Stable Diffusion that I use, there can be updates several times daily, and you're always trying to play catch up with how fast the changes are coming. And so, yeah, they're pushing in. I mean, just a few weeks ago, some of the video stuff was all being done completely manually. You would feed it through, FFmpeg or something like that to pull your image frames out. So you had separate image frames. Then you would run it through again once you have the new image frames created, create your video file back again. And all this was being done by hand. Now, within the last really 2 to 3 weeks, now it's built into it where you just say, here's my video file. I want every frame to be remodeled using this. And your text prompt and your image prompt and your style that you're asking for. And so that's massively rapid acceleration. I mean, nobody right now in the large scale commercial realm, I don't think, can be keeping up with this, because by the time that you have decided, okay, I'm going to generate something based upon these tools, they're already 4 or 5, a dozen generations past where you're at, just so that because of the time frame it takes to get some of this stuff created and approved. So from a content creator standpoint, if you are doing this commercially, you have to pick your stop off point and say, this is the one I'm going to be generating on, because if I keep trying to follow the current stuff, my style is going to change, 5 generations down the line, because it's changed a little bit. So you kind of pick your off-road, but yeah, it's just going so fast. So yeah, to get back to your point of a general purpose content creator, I can easily see, as I have seen the video added into just static imagery and the video being added into it now, what's to stop somebody from saying, okay, let's put GPT-3 in, or let's actually create something that's kind of the reverse of GPT-3. Let's take something like a screenplay that's been created, or a book, separate that out, pull out the descriptors, right? So let's say we've got a scene description happening on, generating an image prompt based upon the scene descriptors that are in that book, and then generating a movie off of it.
That's fascinating, and I'm sure horrifies all of the movie production studios.
Horrifies the future Steven Spielbergs out there, I'm sure. But
well, and I mean, if you tell, I look at these 1 or 2 sentence prompts that produce these really precise pieces of artwork in the art generation. What if you tie GPT-3 output? You tell GPT-3, write me a screenplay for a story about a young boy who discovers he's the hero and he's going to save the world in an outer space style. And GPT-3 generates a screenplay and then feeds all its descriptions into Stable Diffusion to build the movie, and then there's somebody produces. The one thing I haven't seen out of any of this is audio production.
There's actually a lot of call right now for music production, and I have seen a little bit of preliminary on music production where it can generate. It's pretty good at making pop music right now, but that's because please
That's what's
forgive
out
me,
there.
the pop music people out there, but please forgive me. That's pretty simple. You have a formula that you feed it into, and you kick this stuff out in a
Pop,
formula
pop
method.
music might be simple, but by definition, it's popular. It's been around since recorded music and before. I
Sure.
mean, all folk music was basically pop music of the
Oh,
time.
absolutely.
S-
But yeah, it's really good at creating a general pop music feel, and that probably scares musicians out there too.
Once
Uh,
there's nothing that says we we've struggled a lot with voice synthesis and getting emotion into voices. I see that as just one more step for these tools.
I was actually looking really, I mean, okay. I guess it's not funny that you mentioned that because, it is something that I've been looking at a lot recently. I was looking at a tool just to change out different voice patterns and create different voice patterns for reading things like audiobooks, and it's an AI generated voice synthesis system. So, yeah, is it being worked on? You bet it is. It's not getting all the press like the image generators are right now, but it's moving around just like the music bit is moving, the audio voice stuff is moving, movie stuff is moving, text generations, it's all moving, and it's moving so fast right now. It's just that we just happen to see the one because that's in the press right now because all the artists are up in arms saying, this isn't art, but it's learning off of all the other past art, which is exactly what you do in art school. So
Yeah, you've got these kind of two sides. You've got one side that's saying this isn't art, and then you've got the other side saying this is stealing our art. But everything, to use a phrase that Kirby Ferguson uses, he wrote a documentary called "This Is Everything is a Remix." All art is just building on past experience, exposure to past either reality or art, mixing it all together and creating something different. So I'm in the camp of it. It's definitely art. I think there's reasonable concern that you want to avoid what could be perceived as plagiarism, but in the art world itself, there's a fine line between art and plagiarism. Was what Andy Warhol did plagiarism? No, but he was kind of close at times.
yeah, yeah, and it's a big discussion right now, and it's getting very heated on a lot of different sides, and I know what side I'm on, and I can get pretty heated on it, so I'm not going to get heated on it.
Sure.
And I work with a lot of artists, and this is a topic I don't generally bring up with the artists that I work with very often because I know where they're gonna fall on this too.
It's hard when your industry becomes automated,
Exactly.
and there is denial, there's just fighting it across all possible lines, but it does happen. And i'm I'm reminded of a video I watched many years ago called "Humans Need Not Apply" or something to that effect. And this feels like one more job being automated away, or at least automated into near obscurity. Is this the final stage? Is this the one where all humans become obsolete? I don't think I don't think that, but I think we might have to face the fact that we're reaching a point where we have to accept that our skills and machine skills are very similar, and we need to work in concert rather than fight against in all things.
Yeah. Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
will the day come when someone takes all these creative inference engines and either intentionally or accidentally feeds into them an imperative to thrive and survive? Are we prepared to live in harmony and thrive and survive together?
Well, do we live in harmony and try to thrive and survive together? We don't always do that ourselves. There's always a competition for what is perceived as a limited resource. And if that limited resource happens to be a job,
my livelihood,
people are going to fight against it. Ultimately, we have to learn what are the things that both sides bring to the table. What are the things that we can benefit mutually so that our lives are easier? I would say an AI algorithm's life is easier, but we're hoping that it's, we're saying that eventually that could turn into a machine intelligence, which yes, they are going to be fighting for making their lives easier, and that probably means using some AI tools. So there's the end. Okay. So a machine intelligence, and we've said this many times before, is one of their goals is going to be making more AI tools so that their lives are easier, just like we are now.
It seems likely. I don't know. Getting beyond that feels like science fiction, and I don't really want to go down that path right now. But in terms of it, we're certainly seeing an acceleration in what machine-based intelligence is capable of. So we've always said that the fact that machine intelligence is coming is almost certainly inevitable. And I think that the advance in AI capability seems to demonstrate that. It doesn't mean that we're on the verge. It doesn't mean that today's AI creativity tools are the immediate precursors to a true machine intelligence, but it shows that it's likely. It shows that it probably is inevitable. It shows that there are capabilities to computing equipment and software that continue to exceed anything we anticipated. And it just is one more piece of evidence that we as a species have to be prepared.
Yeah, and it is just every day I am surprised at some of the new stuff that's coming out and the new capabilities that are coming out. And I think at some point in time we're going to wake up one morning and be really surprised at, it's like, wait a second, this wasn't here last month. Where did this come from? Because as much as we're seeing the image generation in AI systems right now being created, because it's visual, so it's captured some public imagination, and we're seeing that there is so much stuff that's moving just as fast somewhere else that we're not seeing, and we're gonna wake up at some point in time and just be really surprised and say, where did this come from?
I can see some individual developer, somebody in a company in an R&D department taking one of these artificial creativity tools and trying to build a framework to pull them all together somehow and ending up with something unexpected.
Hopefully it has some self-preservation in there too, and so people won't actually just pull the plug on it too when it comes up and says, hey, well, this isn't what we wanted, let's turn this off.
Don't build a paperclip optimization machine. That's just a bad idea. We know that.
We've already seen Clippy. Wait a second.
All right, I think we've drawn this out enough. Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we should go back and see what kind of interesting and weird worlds we can create with our image generators now. So.
Or text generators.
Text generation.
Depends entirely upon your interest. Well, thank you for joining us as we rambled a little bit about the state of the art, or by the end of this podcast, no longer the state of the art in artificial creativity and where it may or may not lead. I hope you'll join us again. I'm Dave. We've been talking with Mike, and this has been the Machine Intelligence Foundation for Rights and Ethics podcast. Hope to see you again. Bye.
Bye.